सुतं शोकविनाशकारकं नमामि विघ्नेश्वरपादपङ्कजं शान्ताकारं भुजगशयनं पद्मनाभं सुरेशं विश्वाधारं गगनसदृशं मेघवर्णं शुभांगं लक्ष्मीकान्तं कमलनयनं योगविद्यार्णगम्यं वन्दे विष्णुं भवभयहरं सर्वलोकैकनाथम्। नमः शिवाय ॐ नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय गंगाधराय शिव गंगाधराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय गंगाधराय शिव गंगाधराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः गोपेश्वराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय भूतेश्वराय शिव भूतेश्वराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय भूतेश्वराय शिव भूतेश्वराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नीलकंठाय शिव नीलकंठाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नीलकंठाय शिव नीलकंठाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नीलकंठाय शिव नीलकंठाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय हरे हरे भोले जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नंदेश्वराय शिव नंदेश्वराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नंदेश्वराय शिव नंदेश्वराय हरे हरे भोले नमः शिवाय नंदेश्वराय शिव नंदेश्वराय हरे हरे भोले नमः नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय सर्वेश्वराय शिव सर्वेश्वराय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय सर्वेश्वराय शिव सर्वेश्वराय हर हर भोले सर्वेश्वराय शिव सर्वेश्वराय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय सर्वेश्वराय शिव सर्वेश्वराय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय नमः भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय जटाधराय शिव जटाधराय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय त्र्यंबकाय शिव त्र्यंबकाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय त्र्यंबकेश्वर नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय ओम नमः शिवाय हर हर भोले नमः शिवाय हर सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
Welcome to Satsang, everyone. We will start with a question from in advance and then open it up to any questions that anyone here might have. I was meditating tonight and something odd happened. I began by focusing on the breath, then moved my focus to the third eye. At the end of the meditation, I touched my third eye, for who knows what reason, and I started to weep. It was like pushing a button that turned the power on or something. Something came alive and burst out of me. I'm curious as to why that would happen. Typically, when we think of tears, we tend to think of tears in one of two reasons. Either I'm very sad or I'm very happy. So most of the time we cry due to sadness, but also we know we have the possibility to have tears of joy. But there's also a third type of tears, and those are tears of the truth. Those are tears of touching the truth. Most of us, when we think of truth, think of just something we speak. Is that true or is that a lie? The truth is sort of the opposite of untruth or dishonesty. But the truth is actually more than that. And there's a presence to the truth that very frequently leads to really powerful responses. Sometimes it's tears. Sometimes it's laughter. Sometimes it's just incredible blissful silence. But when you touch a real truth, especially if it's been something that you've been kind of running from or hiding from or blocking yourself from, it has an absolute presence to it. And when that happens, tears are a very natural thing to expect. And so touching the third eye, well, the third eye is the eye, the Agya Chakra, the eye here between the eyebrows where we put our tilak or bindi, is the eye of truth. It's the eye of discrimination, the chakra, the energy center of discrimination. But not discrimination in the negative way that most of us think of it. Not discrimination as in, oh, you're pretty, you're ugly, you're black, you're white, I like you, I don't like you. But the real power of discrimination, of seeing the truth. And so the reason that we focus on our third eye, the reason that so many meditations are focused on it, the reason that we worship those with the third eye open. And so many of the, the mantras, especially that are focused on Lord Shiva, refer to the three eyes. Well, because that's the eye that enables us to see the divine. These two eyes see physical form. So literally what I see fat and thin and black and white and pretty or ugly or tall or short, friend or foe if I go a little deeper. But they see separation. These two eyes function literally based on light, movement, angle. If you study the science of perception and literally how the eye works, it works based on light, movement, angle, depth, all of which can only happen in separation. I can only measure the angle of where you are between these two eyes if you're far enough away from me to be able to do it. Anybody ever try to take a picture of something that's a little too close up? Right? The camera, even with the autofocus, unless you've got a special lens, the camera can't do it. You've actually got to move the object or move the camera farther away in order to get a clear picture. Similarly, with just our eyes. Try to read something up like this, you can't. And as you get older, it has to get farther and farther and farther and farther. I remember someone telling me years ago that I would know when I needed glasses because my arm got too short. So these eyes function based on holding an object at an angle, but it has to be a certain distance. So they function literally in separation. It's great for reading things. It's great for driving cars. It's great for making sure you don't stumble over tripods or tables or chairs as you move through a room. But it's not the truth of our existence. The truth is oneness. And so this eye, the third eye, is the eye that we focus on to show us the truth. This is why we put the tilak on every day. It's not, contrary to popular belief, just sort of Indians' makeup. Now these days you can get ones in every color and they're stickers and, maybe with little rhinestones on them. But the point of it is not actually just a makeup accessory. The reason that we do it is to remind ourselves, oh God, and we do it after morning prayers usually, oh God, remind me today as I go forth into the world. Let me not just use these two eyes, but let me remember I have a third eye. And please open it. And actually the traditional, like what I use, the kumkum, a lot of the traditional powders that are made, whether the red ones or the orange ones, whether made from sandalwood, whatever it's made from, it's actually made in such a way that when you mix it with water and you put it on, it goes on wet. And as it dries, there's an ever so slight, almost imperceptible pull on the skin. It's like if you've ever used a face mask. It goes on wet, but by the time the face mask dries, your whole face is kind of pulled together. Well, in a much, much smaller way, as this dries, it pulls the skin together and very, very subtly triggers the receptors in this area. Very, very subtly triggers that area, which is actually what the whole thing is about. So this eye enables us to see the truth. So having it open, whether by touch, whether by meditation, whether by focus, whether by the grace of a guru, whatever it may be, tears are not an unexpected outcome. You're in the presence of truth. And that's the truth that sees the divine, remember. It's not a truth of separation, it's a truth of oneness. And so it's the, oh my God, oh my God. All of that which I had thought about myself, all of the ways I had judged myself, holding myself at an arm's length. You're too tall, you're too thin, you're too fat, you're too black, you're too white, you're too short. Whatever it may be that I've used to judge myself at this arm's length, you're stupid. Suddenly, as that third eye opens, I'm divine. And that experience, it's not an intellectual experience. The eyes see, we know. You don't need necessarily the intellectual brain to process something. If you're walking down the street and a car comes whizzing by, you're going to jump out of the way long before your intellectual thinking brain says, I wonder what the velocity of that car is. I wonder how far I am from the curb. I wonder how quickly I'm going to have to jump. You're on the curb long before your brain has registered a thought. Our eyes see it, it happens. In the same way, this eye sees it, it happens. So it's not, it opens and then the intellectual brain says, wow, that's very interesting. I guess I'm divine. Okay, let's think about that. It's not that. It's the open eye awareness of who you are. And yeah, it could make you cry. Of joy, yes, but also of something, interestingly, that's deeper than joy, which is just truth. Truth becomes a field in which joy can exist, but it's not dependent on joy. Truth is the deeper experience. You can't have joy without truth. As anyone who has tried to use alcohol or drugs or one-night stands or whatever we've tried to do to bring joy in a way that's not in alignment with truth, doesn't work. So truth has to be the field, the foundation. So yeah, there may also be tears of joy. There may also be tears of sadness of the sheer number of years you've wasted. But regardless of the balance of tears of joy and tears of sadness, there's going to be tears of truth. Because truth is what underlies it all. And that's an incredible place to be, is to just sit in the awareness of truth. And whether you cry, whether you laugh, because sometimes that happens too. You know, you're having a conversation with someone. In psychology, it happens a lot, where, you know, you're talking to someone about something and you're kind of working on an insight. What's at the core here? And what you find is when you actually get to that aha moment of, oh my God, this is what's been going on all the time. Oh my God, there's a laughter that's not the nervous laughter of running from truth. It's a completely different laughter. It's not the laughter of a good joke. It's not the laughter of making light of a situation. But it's the laughter of being in the presence of truth. It's the, oh my God. I remember when I was back in California in the one semester that Pujya Swamiji insisted I go back and do after I had been here and after I had known I wanted to stay, but he made me go back. Different story, I won't go into it tonight, but I found myself back in the midst of a PhD program for a semester. And during the course of that time, so many people would say, oh, you're making a horrible mistake, you know, don't go back to India. First finish everything, get your degree, get yourself settled. Then you want to take a year or two and, you know, go on a humanitarian expedition. Sure, you want to go for a spiritual retreat? Sure, but first get yourself all settled. And so I went through many, many weeks of this drama of pretending to make a decision. And I remember so vividly sitting with a woman who is still one of my best friends in the world, a dear, dear, dear mentor, much older than I am, and just an incredibly wise spiritual woman. And I was talking to her about this decision that I was trying to make. And she looked at me and she said, when I look at you, she said, I see a woman in India. She said, that's the truth. You're there. She said, you're not making any decision. You have already arrived in India because I can see it before my eyes. She said, as far as I can tell, the only decision you need to make is whether you're going to spend the next 6 weeks going through the drama of pretending to make a decision that's already been made, or are you going to spend 6 weeks getting your stuff in storage, figuring out the logistics of what it's going to be like to move off to India, and at least be productive. She said, that's the only decision I can see for you to make. And I burst out laughing. It was the most glorious moment of, wow, yes, exactly, thank you. And it was laughter, and then it was silence, because there really was not much left to say. The truth is so all-pervasive when you sit in its presence that it can pull out of you emotion, tears, laughter. But at the root of all of that is silence. Because there's no longer anywhere to go, or anything to do, or anything to figure out. You're just there. So if that's happened, as the asker of this question had the experience, stick with that. Don't overanalyze it too much, because that brings it back into your thinking brain, which functions in separation. Allow it to stay. And whenever you find that you might be drifting, touch it again, or bring the awareness back to it, or meditate on it again. Keep that eye open. Before taking any of our other questions from advance, I'm happy to open it up if there are any questions that anyone here may have. Yes.
This is, as you are talking about third eye, years ago I used to see the light and the eye was open, and I don't know what happened. I cannot figure out precisely, but now when I'm into that space, I don't know where I go. But after a certain period of time, I just come back.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
And what's wrong with that?
It's like I feel... it's a state of... I don't know. It's a state of... Where am I in that space?
Okay, so this is really interesting. The experience is interesting, and the question takes us to a very interesting place. She said, when I used to meditate, on my third eye, I used to see light. I don't see light anymore. Now I just seem to go somewhere, and I don't know where I go, and I don't know what happens. And then I'm back in my body. And when I said to her, okay, and so what's the problem there? She said, well, I don't know where I go. These are the games of the thinking mind that does everything it can to pull us out of spiritual experience. What do you mean you don't have a name for that? What do you mean you can't explain that? What do you mean you don't understand it? Therefore, it must not be real, right? That's what the thinking mind does. We're in the midst of this incredible experience, and the thinking mind goes, I wonder if this is what samadhi is. Yeah, they said samadhi is going to be something, I'll bet I'm having samadhi. And then boom, of course, you're out of it because you can't simultaneously be in samadhi and be trying to figure out whether you are in samadhi. So these are the games that the thinking mind plays on us. If when you meditate, you find that you go somewhere, as you said, and you don't know where it is and you don't know who you are, meaning, if I can put words in your mouth, but stop me if they're wrong, you dissolve. The part of you that has got a vice-like death grip on reality is no longer able to hold on. Reality slips through the wheels of the vice, slips through your thinking mind, and just is. And you're not even aware of it until you have come back. Well, that sounds to me very beautiful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful state.
I would worry more about my drive to name it and understand it than I would worry about what's happening. There's basically nothing wrong that can happen in meditation unless you find that every time you come out of meditation, you've actually got shopping lists and to-do lists. I mean, if you find that you're spending your meditation making shopping lists, you may want to rethink the practice, or just, start a practice of making a shopping list before you meditate so that it no longer has to be done during your meditation. But other than that, there's nothing that happens that's wrong. Some people see light. Some people see lights of certain colors. Some people see shapes. Some people see nothing. There's nothing that's right or wrong. There's not a ladder that says, oh, if you see this, you're really advanced. If you see that, you're still kind of in the beginning stage. Meditation is taking you back to the truth of who you are. And it comes through a lot of ways. It interacts with a lot of things. It interacts with our subconscious. It interacts even on the most basic level with light from the outside coming in through our eyelids. I mean, just the most purely physical, neurological level. But that which happens inside of us, that's what's important. And so if you find that you are dissolving into spaciousness, dissolving into nameless, formless being, well, that's beautiful. Stay with that. Do not allow yourself to get worked up by the thinking mind saying, but what are you going to call that? What does that mean? What is that? The most beautiful things in life, from love to spiritual experience, are things that we're actually really very inadequate at properly describing, properly naming, properly boxing up. It's almost like the more beautiful something is, the less easy it is to stick it in a box. Frustration, easy, I know that box. Greed, okay, I know that box. Jealousy, I know that box. But divine intoxication, well, that's kind of a different sort of box. It's not really a box. And so, the deeper you get into that space, the fewer words there are going to be. It reminds me of my favorite story of Paramahansa Sri Ramakrishna. An incredible, incredible mystic. And he used to go off into these states of samadhi, of trance, of divine intoxication. And his disciples were begging him one day to please share with them what his experience was. What was he feeling? And so, and about the chakras, and to tell them about the different chakras and the different energy levels and what it felt like to move up. And so he starts low and he takes them kind of one by one and what it feels like and what it looks like. And then he would just go into his trance. Long before he got even, halfway there, in his ecstatic trance, and the devotees would just sit around and wait for him to come down, and then he would start all over again, and then same thing would happen. He would get kind of halfway and go into his trance, and finally he looks at his disciples with tears streaming down his face, and he says, I'm trying to tell you. I want to tell you, but the mother just won't let me. So there's a historical precedent for being speechless. Don't worry about that. It's beautiful. Just keep doing whatever you're doing. Any other questions? Yes.
If the truth is fear, how do you recognize what the fear is?
If the truth is fear, how do we recognize what the fear is? Okay. So the capital T truth is never fear. That doesn't mean to undermine the fear. It just is from a semantic perspective. When we're talking about capital T truth, it's the truth of who we are, which is unable to coexist with fear. Because fear is rooted in loss. Whether it's loss of my life, the greatest fear, loss of my loved ones, loss of my money, loss of my possessions. I mean, you can go from the deepest to the most superficial. But that's what all fear is rooted in ultimately. I'm afraid of a plane crashing. Why? Because I don't want to die. I'm not afraid if airlines want to send their planes up with no people and crash them to test, their sheet metal. That doesn't scare me. I'm only afraid of planes I'm in crashing, or planes my loved ones are in crashing. So fear is rooted in loss. I'm afraid of, maybe I'm just afraid of being humiliated, afraid of failure, because of course failure leads to humiliation, inner. I'm afraid of my own darkness, of realizing what I think is the truth, but actually isn't the truth, of how truly worthless I am. So fear is always rooted in loss, in separation, in my smallness. And truth I mean, an inherent, non-negotiable aspect of truth is the awareness of fullness. That is who we are. And so when we talk about the truth being fear, that would be what we call the little t truth. Meaning it's true, it's not a lie, but it's not necessarily my highest truth. Your highest truth is not fear. Your lowercase t truth is fear. So fear is the truthful answer to why you don't, for example, step up to the plate of your life and embrace who you are and what the universe is giving you full-heartedly. Or fear is why you run from certain situations. So to get over the fear, we have to understand several things. First of all, we're all going to die. Which sounds very simple and obvious, but that's because most of us keep it in just the most superficial level of our brain. Like, yeah, my brain knows I'm going to die. But the real deep awareness of our death that could be now, just because we're young doesn't mean that we necessarily have a guarantee. I mean, no human body comes out with an 80-year guarantee or 100-year guarantee. We all know children who die. We know people who died long before what we would consider an acceptable age. So we're all going to die. That's point number one. Point number two, you have no control over it. Meaning, you can stay healthy, and you should stay healthy. But you should stay healthy not so much about I'm going to somehow prevent death, but rather that the days of my life will be stronger. I will be a more efficient and effective tool of the divine if I'm healthy. I will be more able to embody my truth if I'm healthy. But it's not about staving off death. Lord Yama, the god of death, is not kept away by physical health. So we're all going to die, and we have no control over it. Even if you're super healthy, even if you live to be 105, you're still going to die. Whether it's at 105 or 35. So the awareness of death is so crucial because my fear is rooted ultimately in I don't want to die. So I'm afraid of heights, I don't want to fall, I'm afraid of planes, I'm afraid of snakes, I'm afraid, whatever my fear may be. Even interestingly, if you take it on a not physical level, fear of failure, let's say. Not going to start the new project, not going to try this great idea I have. Why? Because, oh my God, what if I fail? I'm going to look like such an idiot. Everybody's going to make fun of me. Okay, well, there's not an immediate direct line between that and physical death, but follow it. Everybody makes fun of me. Means what? Means they leave me, right? I mean, if people are ridiculing me, people who were my friends, well, it means I've lost them. Maybe my loved ones will go because I'm a failure, because they'll see the truth of who I am. I'll lose them. Okay, so you lose them, then what? Well, then I'll be all alone. Okay, so then you're all alone. Then what? Well, for way too many of us, the then what of being all alone is, I will then cease to exist. Our fear of being all alone is a sense that when I'm alone, I am face to face with the truth of who I am. And if I don't really know who I am, if I'm not in touch with that capital T truth, and I'm only in touch with that lowercase t truth, that I think is true. That's how stupid I am, and jealous I am, and competitive I am, and worthless I am, and how I actually only got into that college because I had, cheated on an exam, or somebody had written a paper for me, or I only got the job because, I knew the guy and he had... I'm face to face with my own worthlessness. I'm face to face with my own emptiness. And that emptiness drowns you faster than the deepest ocean. And drowning in the emptiness of yourself is what a lot of us fear. And so the fear of failure, the fear of ridicule, the reason that so many of us play it safe in so many ways is that fear of being alone. Not what will I eat, not who will cook my food, not who will tuck me into bed, but the core of who I am will somehow shrivel and die like the witch if I'm alone. We've become so habituated to literally needing people to validate our existence. Look at the whole selfie movement today, right? I mean, let's shift for a moment into modern social media. What is a selfie? I mean, long before we had selfie sticks where people actually could get a little bit of the background in, we still had a selfie epidemic. The selfie sticks came out of the epidemic. They didn't create the epidemic. So we had an epidemic of people without a stick taking pictures from only as far as their arm would reach of themselves. And I mentioned the distance because if you've ever tried to take a selfie, I remember the very first time I was in Oxford a few years ago. Very, very sweet, dear daughter of my heart is in Oxford and had really wanted me to visit the college she was studying at. She wasn't there at the time, but I had a little bit of free time, and so I went into the college where she was studying, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna take a selfie. I had taken a nice walk by myself through Oxford. I was alone. And I thought, oh, I'll take a selfie and I'll send it to her. Now, it's actually really hard to get any background in a picture. I was like, well, this is just me. I mean, I want the buildings. I want to show her where I am. And for the life of me, I could not figure out how to get pretty much anything other than my face in that. But I mention all of this because this epidemic of selfies is an epidemic of people posting pictures of their own face, never looking very good because it's kind of hard to look really good with your arm. I mean, they're never the nice portraits that somebody has taken of you. So it's not about, look how beautiful I am. It's not about where I am because, again, until these really long selfie sticks came in, you couldn't even see where you were. There's me in front of the Eiffel Tower, but unfortunately you can't see the Eiffel Tower because my face is in the way, so you'll have to just take my word for it. We then post them. So this is the second half. It's not just we take them, but we share them. And the reason we do, and the reason that this is a core part of this discussion of fear and loneliness and emptiness is, if people respond to my post, I exist. Ever posted a selfie that no one responded to? There's this incredible anxiety. Oh my God, what happened? It's the kid left behind at school. Did my mom remember to come pick me up? Where has the world disappeared to, and why am I left standing here all alone? So we have an epidemic of pictures of ourselves because we have an epidemic of fear of being alone. Because we have an epidemic of fear of ceasing to exist. If I post and you like it, I exist. If I post and you like it and you comment and lots of people comment, I really exist. I'm fully here. The Eiffel Tower is an irrelevancy. It could be a picture of me and my cappuccino. Doesn't matter. All that matters is it's me. I posted it. I exist. And so, as you look at fear, take it to its worst case scenario. Yes, you will die. No, you have no control. Yes, all your loved ones will die, either before you or after you. So either you will lose them or you will die first. And yes, you are alone. But who you are is so full that into that experience of fullness, all of the fear dissipates. Because now I don't need you to like my post in order to feel that I exist. I don't need the project to succeed in order to feel like I exist. I can risk failure because I can exist through failure. I only can't risk failure if humiliation, loss of esteem, and by the way, anybody who really would leave someone for giving something their best shot and failing is not someone that you really should be caring much about anyway. But I can risk that because I'm connected to a fullness of who I am. And so the way through fear is into fear. Take whatever the fear is and drop into it. Whatever it is, I guarantee you it's going to happen. And then you take that as a given. Okay, it's going to happen, now what? How do I rise from that? How can my new way of being be that, phoenix from the flames? There's a reason that fire is such an incredible symbol and used in so many of the spiritual rituals. Because until and unless we can be burned, that which is not self can be burned. That which is self doesn't arise. So allow yourself to drop into that fear. Knowing that you're being held. Knowing that there is a force, an energy, a divinity that's holding you and that is you. From the outside to the inside. So that takes away the fear of that which is outside, and it takes away the fear of that which is inside. Because the darkness on the inside is actually a projection of the ego. There is no inner darkness. There's inner ignorance, greed, lust, arrogance, run-of-the-mill inner ignorance. We all suffer from it. But not darkness. The inner darkness is a projection of the ego that has taken things from the outer world. People have abused us. People have harmed us. If it happened when we were young, we believe it's our fault. I must be bad. If it happens as we get older, we take it in a different way. I'm just not smart. I make bad decisions. I'm not trustworthy. Inner darkness, we don't want to face it. Well, there isn't inner darkness. This is just my ego shouting at me in the confines of my own skull. if you can realize that that's all it is, and live in your light, there's nothing to fear. Except wasting minutes of this precious life not living that, not realizing that. Are there any other questions? Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And if you have questions that you feel shy to raise your hand and ask in public, but you'd like to get given in advance, you can get them to Laurie or Ed in the back, and they'll get them to me on the paper for tomorrow.